All right, don't look now, folks, but we are 5 Sundays away from being right back on our couches where we're supposed to be watching a full slate of NFL action. Welcome back to the Janitor's Closet. My name is Bryce Hunt. I'm joined, as always, by Josh Frey-Sam. If you're new to the channel, if this is your first video, it's usually been Josh kind of taking the hosting role. We've been doing a lot of baseball betting, a lot of daily betting. We're going to switch things up a little bit and go to the gridiron for the first time this season. Obviously, the other half of our show as we do baseball and football. And Josh is just a great football mind, a lot of expertise. Had a great year gambling with the pigskin last year, so I'm going to be throwing it to him. I'm putting him in the driver's seat. He's going to get the ball and he's going to put up some good numbers again for us this year. Josh, how are you, man? Are you excited for a little NFL action this year?
No, always, Bryce. Yeah, NFL is as you mentioned, my bread and butter. As MLB is your bread and butter. So yeah, looking forward to making some bets here, and obviously the futures bets. We're obviously going to be bringing the weekly picks to the people as well, but the futures bets. This is an exciting time of year, right? We got the training camp flying around. We got preseason ramping up here. Now this is where everybody's starting to get excited for the regular season, but that hype would not be complete without, adding in a couple of futures bets to kind of get the juices flowing. So looking forward to talking about what we like this season.
For sure. So we will be doing weekly NFL plays on what we like. But as you mentioned, this is the futures episode. We're going to get the season ready. We have a lot of different categories we're going to get into. It's a packed full episode today of futures bets that we've come up with. And we're going to start with some playoff odds to make playoffs category. And we're actually going to start in the AFC today. There's been a lot of moves in the AFC, a lot of big swings, a lot of divisions that are really anyone's game. Injuries have been a factor already in training camp. But
Yeah.
we're going to start with the playoff picture in the AFC, Josh. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, AFC is an absolute dogfight, right? I think that anybody who has been paying attention to the NFL over the past couple of seasons, and now obviously heading into this season, knows that the NFC, which has been kind of ruling the league essentially for however long now, however many years, those quarterbacks have gotten older or retired or moved on, maybe even to the AFC. If in the case of Aaron Rodgers, for example, is a prime example of that, right? Going to the Jets. Now you have a bunch of young studs in the AFC. And I know no one knows that better than you, Bryce, being a fan of the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, you guys got a dogfight over there, especially in the AFC North. So, the AFC right now it is an absolute, well, it's a shit show to be completely honest. But it's a lot of fun to watch, for sure. And with that being said, like I could probably point to like 11 different teams that I could see making the playoffs this year in the AFC, which is outrageous. And that's strictly because of the immense quarterback talent that's over there. So, for starters, I think that we should start with Cleveland Browns, which might catch a little people off guard. And I think actually an important thing before we get to the picks and stuff like that and break him down is I was looking for a lot of value on a lot of these plays, right? Like a lot of these were, for example, the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC East was paying 1.83 if you follow decimal, which is what I do. 1.83, that's the Eagles. I like the Eagles to win the NFC East, but there's not really enough juice there. So Cleveland Browns, for example, are paying double here, and there's reason for that, and they're in a loaded AFC North as we just finished talking about with Joe Burrow and Kenny Pickett and the Steelers, obviously Lamar Jackson, but I think that this is a prime bounce back year for Deshaun Watson. His second year, obviously, at the helm with the Cleveland Browns, he looked really not like the Deshaun Watson that we knew when he was with the Texans, when he came back from all of the his big scandal. But now he's kind of settled in this offense, I think, and they have Nick Chubb, who I think is going to be an absolute beast once again this year. They have Amari Cooper still, who's going to be a reliable wide receiver. And then they also brought in Elijah Moore as well, from the New York Jets in a trade after they made all of those acquisitions with Aaron Rodgers coming over and stuff like that. Not to mention they once again made some additions to the defensive side of the ball that's led by Myles Garrett. So this is kind of just one of those teams that feels like, for me, you kind of get the gut feeling. There's a lot of teams with all the hype and stuff like that, but Cleveland falls into that category of these teams you're kind of hyped up for coming into this season. Their opponent, one of the big things when looking at these futures bets, their opponent 222 win percentage. Their opponents in 2023, their 22 2022 win percentage is the seventh best at 460. Sorry, I should see seventh worst at seventh worst, I should say, seventh most favorable at 460. The toughest opponents come at home as well. They have a really friendly road schedule. So if you take the divisional games out of it on the road, they're going to Indianapolis, Seattle, Denver, the Rams, Houston, all on the road. So, I mean, this is, it's not necessarily a frightening road schedule. And this team, as I mentioned, with all the additions that they had this year, is team is talented as that they've been since I've seen them. So I expect Deshaun Watson to kind of have that bounce back year, get back into that top 10 quarterback that we knew him to be. Cleveland Browns paying double here seems like a pretty good bet.
Yeah, that AFC North is going to be pretty hectic. Of course, Joe Burrow, we're hearing, could miss a handful of games, which could put Cincinnati behind the eight ball right away. We know
Yeah.
the recent health history of Lamar Jackson could always be at stake. They have a new OC there. So, the door could be open for Cleveland or the next team we're going to talk about in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kind of a little bit of value. It's pretty rare that you can find value on two teams in the same division that both seem like they have a real shot to win this thing.
Yeah, exactly. And Pittsburgh Steelers are another one of these teams that it's kind of like you're buying the hype on, for me anyways, right? They're paying 2.3 if you're looking at the decimal side of things. This just feels like, whereas the Browns are kind of like that team that you've been waiting on to kind of break through. Pittsburgh's kind of been in that little bit of the retool, and now they feel like this feels like the breakout team. You know what I mean? They feel Kenny Pickett, and that's led by Kenny Pickett. He ended 2022 really, really strong. They have a slew of young talent on both sides of the ball, right? Talking about George Pickens, Najee Harris, right? Jalen Warren, who looks like he might create a nice two-headed monster there. Deontay Johnson, right? Calvin Austin and Pat Freiermuth and so on and so forth. Like, they just have so many, and then they obviously acquired Allen Robinson as well this year. So they just have a slew of offensive talent. And then defensive side of the ball, Mike Tomlin's just going to have the defense ready to rock. This is a team defense that's going to be, average at worst, it feels like, on every single year. And not to mention, this is also a team like Mike Tomlin has never, I think, was last year the first year, if I'm not mistaken, that he finished below 500, I think, in his career, if I'm not mistaken. Which is
That's right.
outrageous to think about as long as he's been around in the game. So, this is a team that is almost guaranteed, no matter it seems like who's throwing the football or what the team looks like. They're like guaranteed for 7 wins, it almost feels like, because of Mike T. But anyways, their opponent win percentage from 2022 this season is the eighth most favorable. We mentioned Cleveland, seventh most favorable. This is the eighth most favorable schedule this year at 0.470. So again, we're kind of buying we're buying the juice on the Pittsburgh Steelers here, buying what the Pittsburgh Steelers are selling, kind of thing, with their breakout potential here. So I like that. And again, you mentioned, the fact that we have two teams in the same division here is pretty crazy.
For sure. So we're going to take a little transition here from what we think is probably the strongest division in football to what a lot of people thought would be the strongest division in football last year in the AFC West. Didn't pan out that way. And one of the big reasons for that was the unexpected fall of the Denver Broncos last year in Russell Wilson's first year.
Yeah.
A little bit of, a change in culture with Sean Payton coming in. They added a lot this year. They're still
Yeah.
foot on the gas, thinking that they have a real shot to make that playoff picture. And you're kind of agreeing with that. There's a lot of value here. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, 2.95 Denver Broncos are paying, and again, this is you're kind of buying what they're selling, right? Banking on Sean Payton to turn this thing around. This is still a team with a ton of talent. They do have, what I will concede with this bet is 12th worst schedule. Their opponent 2022 win percentages is 0.517, so it has a winning percentage. However, they upgraded the offensive line this offseason. They added to the defense, which is already stellar. They have 9 home games as well, which is important to note, right? With the 17 game odd schedule now. They have 9 of those are home games. I see 6 wins on their schedule personally. Like, if I just looked at up and down their schedule right now, I could probably circle those. 6 of those is what I would like to think are guarantees-ish wins. And then would like to think that, they can get 3 more of those to give themselves a a pretty good shot at getting into the playoffs and winning this division, or pardon me, getting into the playoffs, I should say, and what's going to be a tough AFC playoff. So I like the Denver Broncos here. Again, you're really, a lot of this bet is just stemming from Sean Payton coming over and him hopefully getting just kind of that, turning back the clock a little bit for Russell Wilson, right? And getting them back up and going, because it's a talented team. It's just they obviously were playing under par or playing above par, I should say, is what they were playing last year. So I think Sean Payton kind of rights the ship here, and Denver can find their way back into the playoffs. They're among these teams, right? Not saying they're guaranteed to get in there, but for a bet that's playing potentially triple, I think it's worth buying on.
A lot of juice there, especially with a bounce back year for Russell Wilson. People are thinking after just a nightmare season with Hackett there at the helm in his first year in the Mile High City.
Yeah.
Before we head over to look at some win total numbers, we're going to finish off the playoff picture discussion in the NFC. Specifically looking a little bit in the NFC South. This division doesn't look pretty with the exit of Tom Brady, to say the least. It's up in the air. Seems like it could be anyone's division to win. I don't know if two teams from this division make the playoffs. I don't know how many wins this division. There's a couple rookies in the mix. Why don't you talk a little bit specifically about the Atlanta Falcons, who are kind of pushing their chips into the middle now, maybe trying to advance on an opportunity here?
Yeah, you love to see what the Atlanta Falcons did this offseason, right? With Arthur Smith, pardon me, and the GM at the helm now. For I think what is their third season together in lockstep here. You just mentioned it. The NFC South is just going to be it's going to be a weaker division. I mean, Tampa Bay's fighting between Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield to see who's going to be slinging the rock for them. And no disrespect to them, but at the same time, a lot of disrespect to them. So it's kind of, it has a little bit of talent on that team, but I'm just not, I'm not buying the Bucks. I'm not buying the Panthers, which we'll talk about in just a second with the over under win totals. We'll also, and also New Orleans Saints are a team that could, very well make the argument that they're going to win this division, but again, we're talking about buying some juice here. And because this is literally anybody's division, I think that getting the Falcons at 2.2 here, paying over double your money, I think is a bet that you probably should look at making. Two games. One thing that I will know with the Atlanta Falcons when looking at their schedule, they have two games outside of the noon slate currently, which is kind of good, especially if you're talking about a young team looking to make a step, because that kind of allows for better scheduling for themselves, right? There's a lot of teams that talk about their primetime games and how these teams maybe that look at like getting 5 primetime games in a season, they talk about how that could really throw off their schedule, right? Like they're used to the noon slate, and then they have to like wait an extra day for the Monday nighter, or maybe they have to wait extra hours for the Sunday nighter, and that can kind of throw them off. And I know that might seem like kind of a weird point to make, but like the fact that a team is literally going to be playing the vast majority of their games at the noon slate, they get to follow the same schedule, they get to wake up at the same time, you know what I mean, kind of have set that schedule, get into a rhythm each and every single week. That can really bode well for a team, especially in the position the Atlanta Falcons are in, trying to make that next step. And the Falcons also had a big offseason, as you mentioned. I'm on record stating how big of a believer I am in Desmond Ridder. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Atlanta Falcons are going to win 12 games this season, man. But, the winner of this division might not need to. The winner of this division might need to win 8 games this season, and if that's the case, I think the Atlanta Falcons can definitely get that done. Their opponent, last note I'll make on this, their opponent win percentage, they have one of the easiest schedules on this season. Their opponent's win percentage from 2022 is .417. So weak division, good schedule, kind of a team that's on the up slope here. I'm taking what the Atlanta Falcons got going on for us this season.
For sure, definitely a lot of juice. We've seen a couple big additions for other teams. Derek Carr, of course, stepping into that division. Bryce Young is going to be another quarterback, but there's just a lot of uncertainty there. So if the Falcons can kind of hold this thing down, it looked like they had an opportunity to secure the division last year with Mariota that got away from them. They improved that offensive line, specifically bringing a guy like Jesse Bates. They could be a problem. And I think that not only just to make the playoffs, a lot of people are talking about them to potentially win the division. So just to get into the playoffs, there's definitely some juice here. We're going to transition now into some over under totals for wins. This is, a favorite for a lot of people to look at. I think something we've personally capitalized on over the past couple of years. A
Yeah.
couple familiar teams for us that we're betting on this year. Why don't you take a little bit into the over and under win totals?
Yeah, I'm gonna only spend time on one team here, and that's because two of them are repeats from the to make the playoffs. And Denver Broncos, we have at over 8.5 wins. I just finished talking about them to make the playoffs. I think in order to make the playoffs, you might have to get to that, especially in the AFC. I think you're gonna have to get to that 8-9 win, that at least that 9 win mark. I think there might be a 9 or 10 win team that maybe is on the outside looking in potentially. So I think Denver is poised to make that jump. So I think I'm gonna take the over there. I'm buying what they're selling. Pittsburgh Steelers at over 8.5 as well. Again, I mentioned Mike Tomlin with just how he does not really finish below 500 for starters. And Pittsburgh, again, I'm kind of buying what they're selling. So not spending too much time on those teams, over 8.5 respectively. The Carolina Panthers are the team that I'm going to kind of focus on with this one. They're 7.5 is their over under win total, and that's paying double. And the reason why I really like the under here is for one reason. Since 2018, two rookie quarterbacks have exceeded 7 wins in their season. That's Mac Jones and Jalen Hurts, who technically actually wasn't even a rookie that year. That he was a second-year player. So Mac Jones really, since 2018, is the only true rookie to exceed 7 wins. Rookie quarterback. I as much as I like Bryce Young, the Carolina Panthers have a lot of holes, and they are just not there yet. They just don't. It's not like they're plugging a rookie quarterback into a team that's like ready to freaking rock and make this step to the playoffs right away, right? Carolina, it just, to me, especially for a bet that is paying double the money here, I think that just given on what history would tell you is going to happen, this is worth a bet, and that's pretty plain and simple for me. So that pretty much concludes the over under win total segment of this.
Short and sweet. It's tough. It's tough to, especially in that division.
Yeah,
And it looks like the Panthers are kind of looking to rebuild more than win now. So
for
before
sure.
they kind of put their foot on the gas, it looks like that roster is just nowhere near ready to win eight games this season. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Our next category is going to be division winners. So we did, just to get into the dance, we're now going to look at division winners. Who do you have some juice for to
Yeah.
claim their division this year?
Yeah, we got one bet for this, Bryce. We're looking at the NFC North, and we're looking at the Green Bay Packers. And if you were to shed this background that I have behind me, Bryce, you would see an Aaron Rodgers jersey right behind me, sitting behind me. So let's get it out front and center that I am a Green Bay Packers fan. However, I will say that I don't bet on the Packers for superstitious reasons. However, we are owners of a betting channel, and I would be remiss if I did not mention the Green Bay Packers as a potential bet here that has some juice for people to jump on. Packers are paying like 5-1 to win the NFC North this year. And I'll be honest, a lot of people might look at that and say, oh, but the Detroit Lions, the hype around the Detroit Lions, I love the Detroit Lions, what they're doing. And for good reason. However, I would say that the reason why Vegas has Lions favored to win this division is because the Lions probably have like the highest floor, I would say, in the NFC North this year. Like they might be the most like the least likely to completely blow up in this division this year. And that's because the Minnesota Vikings have lost a slew of talent over the past couple of seasons. They are already regressing last season, and they are what I believe are going to continue to regress this season. You have the Green Bay Packers, who are a very, very young team now after losing Aaron Rodgers, Randall Cobb, Mason Crosby, Mercedes Lewis. Go on and on and on and on and on about all the veterans they lost. And then you have the Chicago Bears, who a lot of people want to buy the juice on Justin Fields. However, Justin Fields, well, we still have yet to see. And also, let's be honest, Ryan Poles did a phenomenal job building up the Chicago Bears this offseason. But the Chicago Bears, let's make no mistake, have a ton of holes on this team still. And again, for them to make the playoffs and win this division, like Justin Fields, I think, has to play out of his mind. And I don't know if, I think Justin Fields is going to be really good this year, but I don't know if I see him playing out of his mind this season. You know what I mean? So anyways, Packers, I'll make the case like this. The Detroit Lions are a really good bet to win this division for sure. Again, because they have the highest floor. However, we still have yet to see whether or not they're going to be able to actually make that jump, or whether they're going to actually just be the Detroit Lions that we have known to absolutely love in the NFC North and just kind of take that one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. And the Green Bay Packers, although they have a very young team led by Jordan Love, who is like the story of the season, obviously, for this team, they have a lot of veteranness around their quarterback, right? We have two-headed monster, veteran monster in AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones leading the way there. They have a veteran offensive line, David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins leading the way, right? They have defensive playmakers on the other side of the ball. They got Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith and Devondre Campbell, Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, right? So on and so forth, right? They have, although the Packers are a really young team, the Green Bay Packers are a team that people should not sleep on this season. They're a very talented team still. With that being said, it's all going to come down to Jordan Love and whether or not he can play at least average at best. If Jordan Love is absolutely terrible this season, well, then, obviously which way this bet's going to go. But the point is the NFC North, I think the reason why we're kind of buying, me and you like this bet so much is because the NFC North, kind of similar to how we talked about with the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC South, the NFC North is really up for grabs, I think, more than a lot of people are realizing. And I think that the Packers are holding the longest odds to win this division at 5-1 is an absolute, you gotta at least dabble with it just to see where it could take you, because saying that the Green Bay Packers are automatically going to finish last in this division, looking up and down at this roster with all the talent they have, is foolish in my mind. But again, Detroit Lions, for obvious reasons, have the highest floor, but the Packers are just, they are a shot worth taking in my mind to win this NFC North.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention when you do division winning futures bets, we're not by any means saying that the Green Bay Packers are a lock to win this
No.
NFC North, but you look at where there's juice and where the lines are, and at 5-1, as you mentioned, it's worth a shot because it's in my personal opinion, it's a better chance that they find a way to win the division than find a way to finish last in the division, especially with the reports we're getting of Jordan Love already seeming to settle into the offense, and just kind of Green Bay's history of being able to find ways to win and how hard it is to go into Lambeau. We have juice here.
And this might not, this might be another one of these, this might be another one of those divisions where, kind of similar to the NFC South, where maybe you don't need 11 wins to win this division. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't need 12 wins to win this division. It could be the divisional winner could need 8 or 9 wins, which, is like that right there. If you look at the team and you're like, oh, is this an 8 or 9 win team? I think at worst, this Packers team, because of talent, and this is if Jordan Love is absolutely garbage, right? I think this is like a 3-win team, right? So it's if he plays average, then you're looking at a 6-win team, and it's okay, well, could they squeeze out another 2 or 3 wins here to maybe put themselves in the mix? You'd like to think that they could.
For sure. Well, this episode's just about coming to a wrap, but before we do that, we're going to get into some player props. I believe we have 3 on the board today, but you have 3 futures player props that you want to talk about today.
Yeah, and because I've dragged this episode out long enough, I'm going to try and make these as quick as possible. The first one we'll start with, we're going to go James Conner, over 725.5 rushing yards. Now, let's be really clear with James Conner here. There is little to no chance that he's going to play all 17 games for the Arizona Cardinals this season. But the Arizona Cardinals have come forth, and they have been open that they view James Conner as a bell cow this season. And if you are a bell cow in an NFL offense, you are probably going to get over 725.5 yards in a season. And this is a bell cow being a 3-down back, right? Now, you need those probably to come in a span of a 13 game. You need those rushing yards to come in a 13 game span, 13, 14 game span, if I had to guess. However, that's very doable. I think that James Conner, that's the one thing that I will say in looking back, taking a step back from this, is the Cards are obviously not a very good team, for one. This is in my front runner to land the number 1 overall pick next year, maybe beside the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then also they don't have Kyler Murray, probably most importantly, because that is going to load the box for James Conner. He's going to see that. Not really many people, until Colt McCoy, which he probably won't, let's be real, until he earns the respect of opposing defenses. James Conner is going to see a lot of people in the box, and he's going to have a really tough time, churning out yards. However, again, we're making this bet because of volume. He's going to see a lot of it. So for that, it's worth a gamble because of the sheer volume he could see. So I'll go to that. Next one is Trevor Lawrence, over 3,950 and a half passing yards. He cleared this last season. Two reasons for this. A, Doug Peterson, the head coach, loves to absolutely sling the rock, and for a coach that loves to sling the rock, you got to take this bet. He had they passed the seventh most passing percentage in 2021 and the 12th most in 2022. Doug Peterson likes to throw the football. And B, this is a really talented offense who has now added Calvin Ridley to the mix. So we saw how much, Trevor Lawrence was a 4,000 plus passing quarterback last season. He has now added what I believe could be a top 12 receiver in the NFL, who was a top 12 receiver in the NFL when he left a couple seasons ago, into the mix. So Trevor Lawrence to get 4,000 passing yards essentially this season, there's no reason why not. And he is primed to make yet another step this season. The last one to cap this episode, I will say DK Metcalf, over 925 and a half receiving yards. I think DK Metcalf is primed for a absolutely brilliant season this year. And we've been talking about DK for some years now and how excellent he is. But now they've added Jackson Smith and Jigba to the mix. They have Tyler Lockett. I think what a lot of that's going to do is actually take a lot of focus off of DK, and I think that's going to it's going to be like less is more, or more is more. More is I don't even know how to describe this. There's more targets being taken away from him potentially, but that's going to actually be more. I think he's going to be more efficient with those catches. So I think DK to reach like that 1,000-yard mark, or he doesn't even need to reach that 1,000-yard mark. I think that's very much worth a dabble there. I think he's going to be like a guy, if you want to talk about fantasy football purposes, DK looks like a guy who's probably going to be like poised for a top 10 year in my mind. So I think DK Metcalf over 925 and a half receiving yards is how we're going to cap this episode, Bryce.
There you go, man. Capping it with a little fantasy football advice too, a little 2-for-1 there.
We're multifaceted.
There you go. Just to recap the plays today for the futures episode. To make the playoffs, we have juice in the Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers, Denver Broncos, and Atlanta Falcons. For the over-under win total category, we have the Panthers under 7.5 wins, and the Broncos and Steelers both to reach the 9 mark at over 8.5. In the division winners, we have the Packers with value at 5-1. These lines, of course, as always, are coming on Bet365 for us. And in our player props, we have James Conner's over in rushing yards for the Arizona Cardinals, Trevor Lawrence over passing yards in Jacksonville, and DK Metcalf's over in receiving yards. Josh, anything else you want to add, man?
I talked a lot here, so I'm gonna say keep it short, sweet, and just say that we had there's a lot of bets that we really liked looking up and down this, but these are the ones that just kind of jumped out to us. So with that being said, there's more out there to take advantage of. I know I'm gonna be placing more, but these are the ones I really saw a lot of value on. But yeah, man, I'm just really, really looking forward to the NFL season. We're gonna hopefully pick up right where we left off last season, and continue a strong showing in the NFL.
For sure. And if some more futures bets do come up, we'll probably just post them up on our Twitter, which is a good chance to plug it at TJC Bets. If you don't follow us there, that's kind of where we post, one play a day, kind of in that realm. If we have something we're canceling or we're adding, you can follow us there at TJC Bets. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video if you appreciate what's coming. It's going to be a big year for NFL. We're still going to close out and keep pumping out content for MLB as we have plays. But for now, that's going to conclude the NFL futures bet. So we'll see you folks, you football folks, in 5 weeks. We'll see you baseball folks probably tomorrow. And happy betting. Let's break the brooms out early this year.
Let's do it, man.